Mission works worldwide, and we'd read different articles from missionaries on the field from the different mission letters and books, some of which we supported and some of which we merely kept up with through the mission magazines. And I was reading the Reformed Baptist missions in Africa, and it took me back to when I was in Bible college and seminary and heard a missionary from Kenya preaching and presenting the work in Kenya and the need in Kenya. And I became burdened, and I never got away from it. I always kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And when I was reading about Kenya in your mother's declining days, I said, when you go to heaven, I'm going to go to Kenya. And it's interesting how you sometimes plan things and they come to fruition. Eating peanut butter toast. Being interviewed on.
This is just a warm up. Matt's gonna take care of everything. He'll even get you in a nice polo shirt. He'll Photoshop something and put it on you.
Yeah, it was about a year after I was converted, about a year after I was saved, that I met Orlo at Alma Baptist Church. Probably the first few months we just kind of gravitated together, got to know each other. And he was the Sunday school superintendent at the church. And I remember one time he rebuked me because I was interested in theology and Bible doctrine. And I went to Nortier's office, and how I started doing that, going to his office and striking up a conversation with him on Sunday morning, and then sometimes hanging out with him and discussing some doctrine during, I don't know if it was during Sunday school. Instead of being in a Sunday school class, I was trying to pick up stuff from Nortier. Orlo said, well, if you're the pastor and you had somebody that you didn't want to offend, but he keeps coming into the pastor's office during the Sunday school, instead of going to a Sunday school class and taking up the pastor's time, as well as, anyway, he did it like in the third person in a way that this was somebody, it wasn't me, it was somebody else doing it. I remember having to thank him for that rebuke. I didn't enjoy it that much, but I'm sure that Nortier had put him up to it, because he didn't want to have to tell me that I couldn't come in there anymore. Just little things like that I can remember. But he was a wise mentor. So once a month I look forward to picking him up. Either he would drive or I would drive. 'Cause his place was on the way to the rescue mission. So I'd stop and pick him up. Orl was an interesting guy. He was always late. He always had one more thing to do. You stopped to pick him up and he was going to floss his teeth or something. He hadn't flossed his teeth yet. So you had to wait for him to do that.
How did the Sudanese ministry begin? How'd that come about?
Frank would strike up conversations with all these guys. They could half understand each other, I think. No, I mean, he would give it a try. He came to me that first day we were in the church after the service. He came to me and he said, I'm sorry, I can't remember names. Garang. You remember Garang?
I met Greg.
Well, Garang, kind of one of the leaders among the Sudanese. And when we got there, he was attending the church, coming over there. And they would have a meal after the service, which drew them in because, we're talking about poor people. And they would come and hear the gospel. And usually they would have some kind of something after the service to ask them questions or whatever, that they could ask questions. Then they would have some beans and some chapatis. If they were not lucky, but if they were fortunate, if they were blessed by God, they'd have some chapatis with their lunch. And so that was kind of the scenario of a Sunday service at Trinity Baptist in Nairobi. And there was a handful, 2 or 3 Sudanese coming regularly, and Garang was kind of the leader of them. Garang and Frank were talking after the service, and Frank came up to me with Garang and he said, Garang wants to have a Bible study. Could we have a Bible study with him? And I said, yeah. I went to one of the deacons. I didn't want to go clear to the top. So I went to Masunga. Masunga was one of the deacons there. Masunga was a school teacher whose wife was a school teacher. And their life is a story in itself. They were the parents of Abby and Gaki. I don't know if you ever met them, but you know who they were.
They were Masunga's daughters, and they came to college in the United States.
Yeah. They graduated from Heidelberg, and they went on for their further study in the medicine field, though neither one of them studied for a doctor's degree. An MD. They studied for a PhD. Particularly one of the girls was a medical research doctor. She had her doctorate, and both of them went on to Ohio State. I don't know where either one of them are.
Did she leave Tony? That's her son, and she said, yeah.
Where would she go?
I don't know. She has a
I'm thinking
trailer.
Michigan would have been worse.
Like motorhome
RV?
type RV thing, and I think she's like, to me, once she became adult and had Tony, I would try and reach out to her, but she would.
Anime is a built-in blame receiver. She has done so many dumb things. Anime, she was a piece of work. Guys,
I have
All
to
right,
find my
Dad.
purse.
Love you. Yep, there's your purse and your bag.
Take any.
goodbye, I love you.